You're listening to the Home Staging Show podcast. I'm your host, Cindy Lin. This is a show where we talk about all things real estate, home staging, and selling your home to live and to sell. Welcome back to Season 9. This is Episode 1. Hey guys, welcome back to another new season of the Home Staging Show. I'm so excited to be back for another season, and thank you for those of you who had taken the time and write reviews on iTunes. It really helped us to get more amazing guests, especially when I have to make co-pitches. A lot of it does feel like vanity numbers sometimes, but people do look at those numbers of followers and decide if they want to be on the show. So we need all the help you can give us to grow. You can also follow us on Instagram. It's instagram.com/stage for more. And we have a free training next week on how to step up your home staging game. I took the most commonly asked questions about home staging and interior styling, and I broke them down into 4 strategies. I'm going to be sharing these 4 strategies on the free online training next Tuesday, so you can improve your home staging skills and win more clients. We're going to talk about 1, the number 1 mindset block that sets you back and knocks your confidence down as a home stager. And 2, how to develop and train your eye to keep your staging looking sharp, on point, and on trend. 3, we're going to talk about how to refine your staging work so you can do the next level fun thing, like using bold colors or going after the luxury market. And number 4, we're going to talk about how to figure out furniture, art, accessories placements in the room every time. So when you sign up, I'll also send you a free tip sheet on my top 10 favorite home staging accessories and some sourcing tips. I'll also be giving away something huge on the free training. So be sure to check that out. I'll put all this information in our show notes. You can also go to cashinthecushions.com to sign up right now. The free training will be next Tuesday, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and that's May 21st. If you cannot make it, there will be a replay until Friday. So today on the show, I'm so excited to have Anthea back. She's a total rock star, as you can tell from last season's episode. On the podcast today, we delve in deeper on her home staging business. We talk about how she buys inventory, how she maintains it, all that good stuff. The cost of inventory, pricing, and where to buy. We also talk a lot about how she trains her stagers and how she learned how to stage and style interiors, plus all her tricks on improving her home staging skills. So for those of you who is not familiar with Anthea Click, she's a luxury home stager based out of Nashville. She's also voted as one of the top 100 most influential people in home staging. After several years as a real estate agent, Anthea Click realized the need for home staging in her local market. It was over 10 years ago when Anthea and her husband Corey started FP Staging and Design in Nashville, Tennessee. With nothing more than an idea, a willingness to work, and the guts to go for it, together they have built the company from their garage to a 14,000 square feet facility with multiple streams of income. Through her experience with the ups and downs of being a small business owner, Anthea has a passion to give back to the home staging industry by helping others by obtaining their success. So let's start the show. Hey, so thank you so much for coming back for another episode. Round 2, I'm so excited.
Well, thank you so much, Cindy, for having me. This is so awesome. I'm just having a blast with all of this.
On the episode from last season, we talked a lot about appealing to buyers' lifestyle inventory. Mm-hmm. So when you're shopping for inventory, do you have a signature look? And how do you know what to buy and what quantity to buy?
That's a fantastic question. Really, when I'm buying stuff, I'm thinking about the different target buyers, the different parts of town that we work in. And I'm also evaluating, because our inventory has lots of different styles, I'm checking inventory to see where are we low, and I'm just anticipating what's coming up with what we have quotes out, and also the agents that I work with knowing the types of houses that they list. So I always take that into consideration when I go to make my purchases.
Yeah, and I think one of the things people are struggling with, especially with newer stager, is that, you know, like for example, now market is booming, so they might have to get inventory for 10 houses. But the fear is that what happens when it gets slower and it all comes back?
There's always the fear. I know. I've got 14,000 square foot warehouse, and in December, you can't lift your elbows because it's so cram packed. Right now, we are shocked because there's like nothing on the shelves. So it definitely is an ebb and flow with inventory. Stuff is constantly going out and stuff is constantly coming back in.
And so that's, I think the challenge is when you choose to carry inventory, and also the cost of acquiring inventory, maintaining it, storing it, and moving it. And actually all these costs are really invisible to our customers. Can you share a little bit about how long usually does it take for you to recover the cost on a piece of inventory, like sofa, for example, for staging?
It usually takes about 5 to 6 months for us to recoup our investment. So whenever I'm going to purchase, I'm looking to get that return. I'm looking to see those numbers affect my year next year with profitability.
I think you really have to think about the profitability of individual pieces and not to overbuy.
Absolutely. And it's an investment. We're constantly reinvesting into our inventory. And, there's nothing to say that you can't have, if you are completely full and you need more room, there's nothing to say that you can't have a warehouse sale. Get some of the older stuff out, or stuff that has been a little bit of abused, and get that out of your inventory so then you can make room for new inventory. And that's what we do a lot. As a matter of fact, we've got another warehouse sale coming up in the next about 3 weeks, and we're just excited to get some of our inventory that has seen better days, get that out and just get it sold, because I want more money to buy new stuff.
Yeah, that's always a struggle. Like for us, it was really difficult for us to do warehouse sale because we were in like a really industrial area, so not a lot of foot traffic to begin with. So we end up just selling most of the stuff on Craigslist or donating it.
Yeah, and we've seen some success like with Facebook Marketplace, although those tend to be like one-offs, and it's a little bit more involved than what we like to be. So I will say we're very blessed to be able to have a space where we can have people there and do a great warehouse sale. So it works to our advantage. So space is really important when you're taking a look at renting a facility for your furniture.
Yeah, I think we learned that. But I think, we like where our warehouse was. I think it's just that for things you want to do with general public, it was almost impossible, especially in an industrial area. So that was a challenge for us.
I'm on the outskirts of what Nashville considers the design district. Although it's moving my way, I'm about a mile away from it right now. And definitely within the next couple of years, it's going to, I'm going to be, I'm sure, right in the heart of it. But we don't get a lot of just general public foot traffic. So really the secret that we have found that works tremendously is just advertise it on Facebook, and it works. People come out in droves. I literally last year, I just threw up onto Facebook just a little post that said that we were going to be getting rid of some of our stuff. And honestly, I didn't have a whole lot. It was our junk stuff that we had had for too long. And it had 1,400 views, and I can't even remember how many shares that it had. And the response totally blew me away. So the night before, I was so concerned about not having enough stuff to sell that we literally went through the entire warehouse and started just pulling stuff that we were not intending to sell, but we wanted to have out there, because my gosh, if we had so many people here and we had nothing to sell, we didn't want any bad press on that. So I was able to clean out some more stuff, which was great. And we had an even much more successful sale. So it's shocking how many people love warehouse sales. They love used furniture. They just love it. So we'll be there to supply it. We're happy to do it.
Yeah, I think it's an advantage for customers as well, because it's lightly used. It's not like someone slept in it and, lived in it.
Absolutely.
So I think it's a really good way to get stuff for your house when you don't have to spend a lot of money on new stuff.
Yeah, and there may be things in our inventory that doesn't meet our standard anymore, but that doesn't mean that it won't work for somebody to live in. Like, for example, I've got a cream-colored sectional that unfortunately we didn't wrap it the way that it needed to be wrapped, and it got really, really dirty on one of these moves. It doesn't hit our standard anymore, but it's all on the back. And so we've been able to sell it because whoever was going to use it, they ended up putting it up, against some walls. And so that really didn't affect them at all. It made no difference to them. So they scored a fabulous sectional, but I couldn't use it. So it worked out well for everybody.
Yeah, and they probably loved it because they got a really good deal on the cream sectional. Oh my God, that is daring.
I know. It was hard to give up, but I had to. We have certain standards that we expect, and people pay us a lot of money to bring furniture into their house, and it can't be substandard. You have to pay attention to the details. That's really important. Otherwise, you won't command a high price for your services. That's
very true. So how big of a team do you have now?
I have 12 people total on my team.
Amazing.
It is. I've woken up and, it started out with Corey and myself. It was just the two of us for about 7 years. And over the last 5 years, we have grown exponentially. And it's really fun to be at the place in business where we are today. I'm no longer personally installing. I run the design team. But I have a lead designer who takes over everything, and I just approve the selections at this point. And really, it's more of my goal with it is mainly inventory management versus checking up on her. And so her training, she's just does an excellent job. So I really don't need to tweak anything. It's just making sure that with what we have coming up, that we're making the best selections for the house, but yet we're reserving the right inventory for our other projects. So it's always a balancing act.
That is absolutely amazing. So when you bring your new people in, like stager, for example, do they go through a training program in-house? Or how does it work? Like, how do you make sure they fit the standard of your company?
Well, we start with when they interview, they get a styling test. And just so I can evaluate where they are. I'm never hiring, your $25 an hour designers. Everybody comes to my team without design background or without design training. They may have a natural knack for it, but that also helps me with payroll because I'm not paying for a premium position. But we constantly, we are constantly training. We do training once a week with the entire design team. And really, the main focus of our training starts with photographs, because how I really learned to stage was by studying photography. And I want them to be able to understand the difference of what a photograph looks like versus when they're actually standing in the room, and for them to understand the differences in what the camera picks up versus what your natural eye picks up. Of course, the room has to look fantastic when you're standing there, but you also need to be thinking about where the photographer stands and what is going to be captured. And so we are always working on where the photographer is going to stand, what makes the most sense in the room. We talk about scale, we talk about size. So I'm constantly drilling that into them, and we've just figured out a formula that works for us, a look. And we're just constantly driving that home.
Oh my God, I'm getting goosebumps. I love this. You have no idea. Because the biggest lesson I've learned working on photo shoot was that the way camera sees the room is completely different. Not completely different, but it's very, very different than how we perceive it. So when we walk into the room, we feel like, oh, this is staged really well, but it might not photograph well.
Absolutely. You have to think like a photographer. You have to pay attention to where they're going to stand. Now, you're not going to nail it every time, or sometimes you get some weird angles from that a photographer shoots from, and you're like, that's really bizarre. I'm not quite sure why they did that, but that could just be the inexperience of the photographer. But I'm also sending my team in to photograph as well. So the agent will usually share their photos with us because we like to market their properties. And then I'm having my photographer going in there and doing vignette shots and then also full room shots, so that in case we don't get a good angle, we can actually have a good angle with our photographs.
Yeah, no, I love that. Because I think a big part of photography, it really is about cropping. It's about composing the photo. And so the way we look at the room through human eyes, it's really different than how the camera is being composed in terms
It
of
really
delivering a
is.
photograph. Yeah.
There are properties that in our early days that I thought, man, we just knocked this out of the park. It's so awesome. And then I see photographs and it's like, ooh, that
It
was
looked really flat. Yeah.
yeah, I missed that. I messed that up. So that's why we study our photographs, so that my team gets used to thinking like that.
So what are you looking at? What are you teaching them when they're looking at the photograph?
I'm talking about, first off, think about where the photographer stands. Super important. If you've got a wall full of beautiful windows, I guarantee you he's going to capture that view. So thinking about not only is it traffic flow and pattern and how things are balanced, it could be our groupings that we're looking at, where it's maybe the far side table from the sofa. The groupings that we did was a little maybe small for the room size. So they're learning, oh gosh, it looked great in the warehouse when we put it together, but when we put it in this house that had a 20-foot ceiling, it kind of got swallowed up. So we talk about things like that. We talk about color, and I'm constantly talking about a triangle, about you've got to bounce the eye around with color. Also, you have to drive what I call the invisible lines. So you tell the buyer where you want them to look. So I like big artwork. I believe you go big or you go home. And also, when you go with big things, it also makes the space feel much more luxurious and full. And luxury real estate is our sweet spot. And you can't do furniture that's too small or what looks just like overwhelmed by the room. So understanding a fine balance there is super important as well.
I love it. Oh my God. Because I was working with a student of mine this morning, like one-on-one, and this is exactly the same thing we talk about. Because a lot of time this room looks great, but then when it comes out of the photograph, it looks either really flat or the scale is completely off. It's just really because camera sees the room differently as our human eye sees the room. So I'm really loving this right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And we drive that home. I probably spend at least half of our training time focusing on photographs. The other might be, we're working on groupings or we're working on styles, like what's going to go into a more modern home versus what would be maybe a more like restoration hardware style or even a more traditional style, and getting my team completely familiar with all of the inventory and what works in one property and what doesn't, and then what are some of the rules that you can break and when do you break them. There's just a lot to learn, and that was one of the biggest challenges that I had when I first started hiring people to put these projects together. Was it didn't look like Corey and Anthea did it. And that was my biggest fear, was that we had developed such a great reputation within our community here that I needed it to be carried on. I didn't want people to say, oh, well, they used to be good, or I'm not quite sure what happened to them. Now they're not the ones installing. I didn't want anybody to know that it was not us installing. That's the quality of the work that it needed to be. So we have just really worked on, take a look at our old photographs. What are some things that you notice? How do we set up, let's say, maybe our books? What do we do with our books? There are certain rules that we have. And it's just that it's going to be different for every staging company, but we wrote down rules that worked for us and what was part of our formula. And so to be able to show my team old photographs, or if we're working on, let's say, a really modern home, I might pull photographs from something that I have done in the past and I say, I want it to look like this. And not that they necessarily need to use those exact pieces, but for the exact same feel, that's what I'm going for. And so when you can show a picture, that will help with training more than anything. And once I figured that out, it made a whole world of sense. And my design team just started getting better and better and better. And they just skyrocketed. And now I don't even worry about, are they executing to our standards? Because I'm going back and looking at photographs and going, wow, this was fantastic. There starts to be less and less things that you fix. But then at the same time, I get really detailed and I might say, ladies, everything here was fantastic, except, this is what I would have done differently. And then giving them the why. That's super important so that they understand the rules, but the whys behind it so that it empowers them to make good decisions.
That's fantastic. So you give them the rules. So when can they break the rules when it comes to styling?
It's going to depend upon every project. And it could be something like, I'm very symmetrical. I love things to balance. And it might be, we always do 2 side tables next, on each side of the bed. But this room is particularly small and it's just kind of weird with the second one. I'm highlighting actually how small it is if I put 2 side tables in there. So we're going to break the rule and we're going to do 1 side table. It's never my favorite, but if that's what the house tells you to do, that's what we do.
I love this. This is amazing. Oh my gosh. I feel like you should box this up and sell it for a lot of money.
Oh, you do? Well, because I'm not formally trained. I don't have a design degree, and I've gone through a staging course, but that was years ago. And as you know, Cindy, years ago, the training courses were not at the level of where they are now.
Right.
So I had a lot of learning to do. I had a lot of bumps in the road. I had a lot of failures. Thank goodness I had more successes than failures, but those failures really taught me how to get better. And by getting my face into those photographs, that's where I really learned the most.
That's really cool. So what kind of photographs are you looking at? Are you looking at interior design magazines, catalogs? What are you looking at?
I am looking at any kind of awesome design magazine. I'm looking at blogs. I'm checking out stuff from what other staging companies have done. I have a handful of favorites that I always look at their stuff and I admire and go, man, when I grow up, I want to be just like them. But then I'm also evaluating our own work. And I think that's really important to be able to take a look and go, you know what, this was really good, or this didn't hit the home run that I was hoping for. What would I do differently? And by teaching myself that, I feel like I have really progressed and really grown. And that's just what I pay attention to.
I love it. I mean, I think when I first started too, I look at a lot of catalogs like West Elm or Party Barn, because I mean, they're professionally styled. And then, so there's a lot of tips and tricks already embedded into their catalog. So it's very clearly to see how they were able to build up this lifestyle to actually sell and merchandise their products.
Absolutely. And that's what I call OPM, other people's money. Utilize other people's money that they have spent to benefit yourself. So what I mean by that is, like, when you're talking about like West Elm, Restoration Hardware, could even be Ballard Design, that kind of thing. When you're looking at all of that, pay attention to the tricks and the tips and the things and the way that they do it. They research this. They spend a lot of money doing that. So, also like with design colors and trends, these people are investing a tremendous amount of money to be that cutting edge. And so I like to take that information and learn from it and utilize their marketing dollars. So their research dollars. So then I don't have to spend money on research.
That's great. I love it. I agree as well. I mean, it's really about leveraging what you can learn and what you have to really achieve the result that you want to get.
Yeah, and it doesn't cost a lot of money to do it at all. It doesn't cost you anything to sit on the internet and browse through West Elm or, Restoration Hardware. It doesn't cost you anything. So do it.
I know. Internet makes it so easy now. Like, what did we do before YouTube and all this stuff? Oh my God.
I don't have a clue. How did we survive? I don't know.
In the library, looking everything up on encyclopedias.
Yes.
So when it comes to pricing your inventory, so do you price each things out individually, or with the client you just offer like a rental package to them?
I offer a rental package to them, and I actually rent by the room. And so what I have found to be the easiest is, when I first started, of course, all of this is in my head, and I'm trying to figure out what's the formula, what's the sweet spot, where am I making money, where am I not, how do I price this so that my market will accept it, and I'm not pricing myself out of the market, but yet I'm not so cheap that I'm working really hard for next to nothing. What I do is I actually have a formula. I have it broken down by the price point of the house. So, for example, if it's a $500,000 house and below, that's what we call our standard line. Anything that's above 500,000 is our luxury line. And so every piece of furniture that I have is actually labeled a standard or a luxury. I also have some that's premium, which are going to go into those really high-end, nice penthouses or multi-million-dollar properties here. I just break it down by the room, and I have a range that I charge. So it might be, for a standard living room, which might be, at the lower price point, could be a sofa with a couple chairs in it. It's going to be, a lot lower than if I have a luxury property, because the furniture is more expensive and the luxury clientele expects to pay for that. It's going to be a totally different price point. So I have just sat down and I figured out a formula, and I tweak it all the time. Sometimes I push the market, sometimes I back off the market. It depends upon if we're super crazy busy in the month of March and April, our spring market. There is no sweet spot on pricing at all. You're going to pay for the premium. It's supply and demand. Now, December, we might have another story. It's going to be, my prices are going to be softer because I want to get that inventory into those houses that month. I've got an excess of it.
Are you ever worried about stagers who are like charging lower than you are?
No. And the reason why, I will tell you, I'm probably the most expensive stager in Nashville. And I like that because the agents who I work with are luxury agents, and they have a much higher expectation than somebody who is going to be just listing, a $200,000 property. Not only does the service that comes along with it be more expensive, I don't care if somebody is going to come in cheaper than me, because I'm selling my experience, I'm selling my results, and I'm also selling that furniture. People ooh and ah over that really nice luxury furniture. And if you want that in your house, you're going to pay for it. So my ideal client is not somebody who's trying to nickel and dime me. My best clients are the ones who call me and they say, hey, I have a property and it's going to be ready on such and such date. I need you to go over there and look at it. Put me on your schedule. So they're not even asking how much it is, because they know that we're going to deliver. They know that it's a fantastic investment, that we're going to get the job done, which is what they care about. They have to answer to their client. So if they're going to convince their client that this is a fantastic investment, I have to make them look good. And so that is my top priority, is to make sure that all of the furniture looks fantastic, that we have laid it out the way that it needs to be, that we're talking to the ideal target buyer, that we know what we're doing, and to make it as seamless and easy for that agent as possible. They truly value that. So it doesn't matter to me if somebody charges less. That's not who I'm looking to work with. I want the agent who appreciates what we do, and that's not necessarily every agent.
I think that mindset is so key, because I've noticed interviewing a lot of top stagers in the field, everybody pretty much says the same thing. They never really worry about the budget stager who's going to come in and try to steal their business. because they know their value. They provide a certain value to their client. They go above and beyond in their services. So they never really worry about these people who are just trying to win jobs based on price. It's a lose-lose game. I mean, everybody loses, because if you are a budget stager, you have to constantly cut price to get jobs. You lose. Your client also loses because they're not getting the quality they should be getting.
Absolutely. And to me, that is just a lot of work for next to nothing. I would much rather have less jobs, but those jobs be really nice properties, than to be constantly turning over semi-good work. I'd rather maximize my investment in my time, maximize my investment in my furniture, and only work with those agents who respect that. So, and I understand when you're first starting out, you may not have a lot of experience. And honestly, I think a lot of it is confidence. It's owning and knowing who you are and what your sweet spot is. And, there could be 100 stagers in a room, and there would be 100 different business models and 100 different ways that we would approach something. So we all bring special sauce to our companies. Nobody can absolutely duplicate exactly what we do. And where I really learned this, as a matter of fact, I had a conversation with an agent about this last night. One of the fun things that we have been able to do is to open up our inventory to the other staging companies in town and allow them to rent our furniture. So my big hesitation with that before I first started doing that was, oh my gosh, if I let them rent my furniture, they're going to look just like us, and then I'm going to lose business. And then that fear started creeping in. And I decided, I'm just going to give it a shot. Let's see what it looks like. Once we started renting the furniture, I quickly discovered that it doesn't matter if it's the exact same sofa or the exact same chairs. Somebody else is going to use it totally different than the way I would do it. So I never worry about them stealing my look, because it's what they want to do. And it's fantastic. And I actually have some agents that I work with that I told them, I rented, some furniture out to this other staging company. And they're like, oh, I went through that house and I had no idea that was your stuff. It didn't even look anything like you. I've never even thought that it was you. And it's like fantastic, because that entire house we furnished.
That's awesome, though. It means an additional stream of income. It's so exciting.
Yes. And you know what? This is what I love about it. It gave the other stager a platform to earn some money and for them to build their business. And how I feel about it are the more houses that are staged on a daily basis, whether it's I got the job or not, or our furniture went out or not, it really doesn't matter, because ultimately in the long run, we all win. There was a time 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when I was selling real estate, and it was not common practice for a home inspection to be happening in the transaction. Well, now anybody who buys a house who doesn't do a home inspection, they're crazy. So why can't we do that same approach with staging? If you're not staging your house when you're selling, you are crazy, because you're leaving so much money on the table. So the more houses that are staged here in Nashville on a daily basis only helps not only our industry, but the individual companies in the future. And that's what I'm excited about, because more people are staging, the more people are going to stage.
I love that. I mean, that's how our industry will grow, is when people are running businesses the right way and they're making money, they're making their clients money. And that's really how the industry is going to grow in a very healthy direction.
And let's work together. I love being able to help. I have other stagers that I work with that they might need to rent a piece or two to finish out a job from us. And I love that. So, it just helps them complete their job. It helps them be successful. And, we pass referrals back and forth to each other all the time. There's really not a sense of competition in my city, which I'm so blessed that that's the case, because we've come together and we said, let's work together and let's everybody win. And that has completely revolutionized the way we all approach staging now. It's awesome.
That is awesome. And again, it's mindset, because if people had this abundance mindset, they're not going to go out and be like, oh, she's going to steal my business. But instead, you're all working together for a greater common goal, which I think is fantastic.
Absolutely. And, you know, just because they're an ideal client for me doesn't mean that somebody else is going to be an ideal client. You've got to get particular about who you want to work with. And you really need to think about that agent. What does that look like? You know, are they selling 20 homes a year? Are they selling 200 homes a year? Are they solo practitioners? Are they teams? Like, who is your ideal agent to work with? You know, what kind of listings do they take? Are their clients great people to work with, or are they always a handful? So when you can figure out who you want to work with, it becomes really, really easy.
Right. I agree with that. So did you get into luxury right off the bat, or it took a few years for you to build up to where you are doing luxury homes all the time now?
Yeah, it definitely took some time to work into this market. I started out with little $200,000 houses and below. They were little flips, and most of them, as we call, we were just polishing something that wasn't pretty. So, and those little houses just surprised me. And I call them set it and forget it, because you just go in, you drop your furniture and you're about done, and then you don't forget it. And then, then you forget about it, and 30 days later you're picking it up because it's sold. We like to turn those and burn those, absolutely. But really, we just started out with the small flips, and I was working with a lot of investors at the time. And then as our investors, their business started growing and changing, so did ours. They started moving into the luxury market, so I started moving into the luxury market, and I discovered how much more I like that. The doors are wider getting in. They're bigger projects. You can buy nicer furniture. Things are just on a higher, grander scale. And that's really what I found that I absolutely love. So it's fun for me.
And so in your opinion, so at what point did you decide to go into a warehouse, and how did you decide how big of the warehouse you wanted?
That one was tough. I started out I had 5 mini warehouses, those little storage units.
Oh, I hate those.
Yeah, they're awful, because inevitably whatever you need is always in the very back.
Yeah.
So you have to pull everything out to get it. That's not efficient. That didn't work. And I had a really hard time picturing, like, what does 3,000 square feet look like in a warehouse, and how do I maximize the space? Does all of my stuff work in that? I didn't know. What I did, I knew I really wanted to be in a warehouse, and that had been my vision for a really long time. And so what I started doing is my husband Corey and I started driving around this industrial complex that was full of warehouses. Now, Cindy, at the time, we didn't even have 2 nickels to rub together. We didn't even really have money for the gas to go in the car. But I'm a big believer in dreaming and seeing something in front of your face to go for. And so we would just constantly drive around, and we'd look at buildings and go, man, it's going to be so awesome when we can have a warehouse. And we talked about how easy it was going to be able to get our furniture, how we'd be able to see everything. I saw a for lease sign on this cutest little property. Come to find out, I just called a commercial real estate agent. I just wanted to see. I didn't even know if we could qualify for anything. I had 0 credit. We are a cash basis company. Everything we pay cash for. If we can't pay for it, we can't afford it. So I had some money. As we're growing, I'm starting to be able to save a little bit of money and tuck it away. I found I called the commercial real estate agent and told him what I was looking for. Here's my dilemma. I don't know. This is a totally foreign world to me. And in about 2 weeks, we had found a property that was in that industrial complex, and it was 3,500 square feet. My rent was $2,000 a month, and I thought I had died and gone to heaven. But I was going from my rental of my storage units being $250 to a month to now $2,000. So now my expenses have really gone up. I just really started making sure that let's keep ourselves booked. Let's get out there. Let's keep growing and getting business. And, once we moved in, there was a lot of trial and error in figuring out what's best for us in the way of layout and does this work? I didn't know. So we had some awkward moments, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. And that's the beauty of it, is just go for it. It's never going to be perfect. And you just need to get over that. So we were at that place for we had a 3-year lease. We were there for 2 years. We were just busting at the seams and for too long. And so we talked to our landlord and said, hey, we really need a new spot. Well, he happened to have a building that was available. And we moved from that place over to our new building, which was 7,000 square feet at the time. And the other side of the building was occupied. And they moved out about 6 months later. So then we took over the entire building. I now have 14,000 square feet, and there are some months like December when a lot of furniture tends to come back. Everybody wants to get that staging off of their books for the year. You can hardly even lift your elbows because we have so much stuff. So we have to figure out we have to be creative and figure out really how to maximize our space, versus like now in March, when we're at the height of our spring season. I'm kind of a little stressed out about the inventory levels right now because we are booked solid, and I'm hoping and praying that we get some more destaging so I can get some of that inventory turned. So if that doesn't happen, I'm going to have to do a mad dash to pick up some inventory around town to fill those jobs, which is fine if that's what we need to do.
And at what point did you decide to start buying wholesale?
We started buying wholesale about 4 years ago when I realized that this retail shopping is for the birds. Because, man, anytime we had a project, we were going all over town. We would even travel, up to about an hour outside of Nashville just to hit all the home goods, hoping we can find a matching chair for the one that we found 3 days ago. And that really wore me out. It really got to a point, like I felt like I was spinning my wheels, like I was working way harder than necessary. Someone had said to me, you really need to look into buying wholesale. So I started doing a little research, and then we showed up at High Point Market for the first time and were completely blown away. Like, oh my goodness. But then we decided, let's do this. So we had saved some money, and we were prepared to put in some big orders. And that makes your life so much easier when you don't have to shop all over town, to get a job done, because it's so consuming. It's so much time to make that happen.
I totally agree with you. I think buying wholesale really changed the game in terms of inventory. It saves so much time and money, actually. Just the trick is you have to figure out how much you order and when to kind of line up according to the job demands.
Absolutely. And also it's not only when you're ordering it, but it's when you're going to get it, when it's going to ship to you, because sometimes this stuff you can get it, in a few weeks. Other times it's like, we haven't even put this in production yet. So it's going to be 6 months before you get it.
Yeah. Or there's something wrong at the custom and there's a delay and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Anything could happen. So, and we've had times in the past where we've had to go back and fill in retail. But thankfully it might be just like a dresser or a bed or something like that. So it's not, we're grateful it's not an entire house.
Yeah. And we do have a listener question, like what are some of the best places to buy wholesale artwork?
Wholesale artwork, I have 2 places that I really like. Artist Guild is one of them. They've got a whole bunch of different sizes, and they're priced by the size. So that's fantastic because you need to know your numbers. And then I also absolutely love, for my luxury artwork, Harp and Finial. They have some phenomenal pieces that are relatively inexpensive that just make a huge impact. So going back to that go big or go home artwork, that's where I get that.
I love that. One of the things I didn't say was that, because you're talking about how you're designing a room based on how you want the buyers to look at it. And by having a really significant piece of art is really good for that. And I really love that because you're really, like in photography, we call this leading line. It's like this invisible line. When we're doing room design too, it's consciously leading people in terms of traffic flow, where the eyes are going to be. So I think it's actually a very powerful tool to utilize in design. It's not something we really talk about all the time.
Absolutely. And those are the things, that's what makes all the difference. That's the detail. Like, for example, when I talk about invisible lines with my team, I talk about when you group your side tables, when you do your groupings on, let's say, your bedroom side tables, I personally always like to have them angled in just so slightly so that at the footboard, if you're standing in the middle of the footboard, it creates a V. Because when you do that, it makes for a fantastic photograph. And once my girls figured that out, all of a sudden our photographs started changing. And it was like, yes, that's a win, because it's such a minor little tweak that can make such a huge difference.
I love that. That's such a good trick. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think you're basically unconsciously hugging the eye line in. And then so it makes the focal point of the bed really pops.
I absolutely love the way you said that. Yep, that's exactly what we're doing, is we're hugging it. I love that.
I love it. And then what does a typical staging day look like for your team? Can you walk us through, like, what is a typical staging day for you guys?
What we do is we actually start off the week on Mondays. We've started doing this recently. We no longer, for example, stage on Mondays. Mondays are my days for my girls we start out and we have a design meeting and we talk about all of the properties that are on the schedule for the week. And then we pull all of our accessories for those properties on Monday. We get everything binned up. And then as we start to roll through the week, we start out, we get all our vehicles loaded. We head out to the property. And it becomes like clockwork. The movers, when they arrive, my lead designer will walk them through the property and give them the design plan. The console goes over here, the dresser goes here, the bed goes on this wall, so that we can try and eliminate some of these questions so that the girls can actually get to work. And we don't have to sit and play traffic cop all day long. While my lead designer is working with the movers, my staging assistants are installing the kitchen and the bathrooms, because those are things that we can do easily, we can do them quickly, and they're not reliant upon the movers having to get anything in there. So once the bathrooms and kitchens are done, then they break off to their other rooms. Everybody is assigned rooms that they're supposed to do for the day. And the reason why we assign rooms is so that we can go back and we can evaluate the photographs and we can see when or who is knocking it out of the park, or maybe we need to go back and we need to revisit something with training. So it gives everybody some accountability, and instead of just giving a free-for-all, do whatever you want kind of thing, which is how I work. So, and that's something else too that I had to figure out. I'm one of those people, when I would stage, I would walk through the warehouse, I would pull accessories off the shelves that I thought, oh, this will work, this will work, this will work. And I'd take probably about 20 bins of stuff, and then I'd go get creative inside the house. Well, my team, they don't think like that, and they don't work like that. So we had to back up and punt and figure out a way that works for them. So what they do is they design everything in the warehouse, and then they only take what needs to go. And then sometimes we'll take a bin of just some extras if we have questions or we're not quite positive how it's going to feel in the room. so that, or something could get broken on the way over there. So we've got a couple bins of just like backup stuff that could go in just about any grouping that would work. So once the girls' furniture is in, they finish styling, then they do all of their fine tuning with touching up furniture. Then they will photograph, they inventory everything, and then we come back to the warehouse, get anything restocked that needs to be done, fine tuned, and then we just start with, if we didn't finish pooling on Monday, anything else that we need to finish up, we just go ahead and wrap that up, and then we're done for the day. So the girls are generally out in the field 5, 6, 7 hours because we can handle 2 properties at a time.
That's really fantastic. I think you just have it down to a system, it seems like, and it makes it so much
I'm
smoother.
trying.
No, I love the
trying.
design meeting. I mean, I think that's a great idea because I work like how you used to. I just basically pull whatever thing I think will work for the house. So we tend to overbring because I also like to have options.
Yes.
And also you don't know. And also the other thing too is like sometimes you look at the house, it's in one paint color, and the seller didn't tell you they repainted the house, and they repainted in this like institutional hospital white. So it eats up everything you put in there. So I usually tend to overbring because I'm a little bit superstitious about running an inventory on site. But this is a really efficient way, I think, for you to run the jobs.
Well, and you and I stage the same way. My team, my millennials, they think differently. And so that's where I had to transfer as a business owner. Like, just because this worked for me doesn't mean that works for my team. And to be able to transfer over and to be flexible to work in ways that are their strengths and what they find most efficient. And also, we've thrown out to them that, guys, we're looking at ways, how do we be more efficient so that we can get more houses done and we can be more profitable? Well, they have completely embraced being more efficient. And like right now, the topic of conversation is that we're going to move all the design world, all of our accessories and lamps and greenery and artwork. We're moving all of that over to the other side of the warehouse to give them more space, because right now it's just rows, which worked for me. But they need a little bit more space to be able to get all their groupings together and all of that. So we're shifting and making it so that they can be more efficient and be creative. And it's important to be flexible. So when you transfer over from being a solopreneur to having a team, you've got to figure out what's your sweet spot for your team. And just because you do it one way, you can't necessarily be married to it. You've got to have flexibility if you want to maximize and you want to leverage them, so that you don't have to be on site, but yet it still has your same standard. Your team sees that you're willing to be flexible and that you only want them to succeed. They are going to knock it out of the park. They're going to start taking ownership of what they're doing. And I guarantee you, they will start doing things way better than what you did. And that's what I have discovered.
I think too, I mean, a lot of it is to give up that control, which can be very scary for a lot of entrepreneurs, and also be able to communicate. Because like you, once I had assistants, I need to figure out how I can communicate what the look and feel I want is. And the thing is that I stage very intuitively, like I do things by feel. This is how I approach my life, like I really trust my gut feeling, et cetera, et cetera. But I need to verbalize it when I'm training in-house stagers. Like if I want them to be able to do jobs without me being there, I need to be able to verbalize how to pull the room together so that they can replicate the look and feel that I want.
Absolutely. And that's what I have found transferring over from me doing it. How do I communicate my vision to my team? And photographs is the key, because you can show them a picture and say, this is a house we did. I want this house to look similar to this. I want it to have the same feel. They can take that and run with it because you've given them something tangible. And it's not like we're playing the telephone game, because they can visually see it. and they can start to embrace it. And the more photographs they look at, the clearer they're going to become on what the expectations and what the standards are. And then they're going to be able to execute it.
Do you still do like everyday homes, or you only do luxury homes now?
We do everyday homes. I'm not a home snob by any means, but those tend to be more like fillers. That luxury home is my sweet spot. I like to fill the calendar up with those ones first. But I'm not going to turn down somebody because, set it and forget it. That's easy money. We can go in, we could be in a house in 2 hours. It's done and we're out of there. So I can fill my day up with 2 or 3 of those real easy. And it just keeps the cash coming in. It keeps the furniture rotating, and it keeps our agents happy because not necessarily all of our agents are going to be listing those luxury properties. They may have an occasional one-off where they're doing a $300,000 property. I'm not a snob. I'll do it.
No, that's great. I love that. But do you have specific inventory for the everyday home? Because I assume the look and feel is very different than luxury home.
I do. And so when I talked about earlier about breaking like our pricing and how we break it down, so all of our furniture is tagged either standard or luxury or premium. And so, and it's really pricing is what it comes down to. How much did I spend on that chair, And so we have plenty of furniture that we can do those lower end price. And also, a lot of the stagers that I rent to really don't tap much into the luxury market. So I have found that my standard furniture is a really good fit for them because still they're building their confidence, they're building their business, and most people like to break into the business at that lower price point. It's a little bit, it's not so intimidating, I guess I'd say.
Yeah. And so in your opinion, what makes a successful staging?
Selling quickly. I think it's successful when we have nailed our colors. I feel like it's successful when we have nailed the layout of the furniture. And I feel like we're really successful when we really know who our target buyer is and we speak to that buyer. I also know that it's successful when they call me and they say, "Can we buy this furniture?" Because I know that it spoke to them and that it helped them fall in love with the house. And that's what we're here to do,
Yeah, and I feel like that is so under tapped because buyers are already seeing the house. Clearly they love it. And so why not upsell to the buyers and offer design service, right? And sell them furniture because you already know the house, you worked on it. And now the buyers are moving in. And when they're moving into a new property, chances are they're upgrading. So their old furniture may not even work for the new space.
Absolutely.
So why not upgrade it?
Yeah. I mean, you've got a captive audience that's ready, willing, and able to buy. Sell it to them. Then you can turn it over. You make a nice little profit, and then you can reinvest into some nicer inventory, or you can reinvest in that same piece again and then get another one, for the money you made on it. So it just makes a whole lot of sense. Just sell it and don't be emotionally attached to your inventory. I used to be that way. And I used to always say no, no, no. And I realized I am leaving so much money on the table. There are pieces for example, in our inventory right now that I won't sell. Could be like a one-of-a-kind kind of deal. So yeah, there I am with my emotional attachment. We've got a property right now that the client came in or the buyer came in and they want to buy the entire household full of furniture. In this house, there's some pieces that I can't sell to them that I don't feel good about selling. I've got some chairs, for example, that have had some legs broken that we've had to repair. And I always want everything to be in phenomenal shape. I always want to sell something the way that I would want to purchase it. So it's almost kind of like where some of the furniture has been duct tape and bubble gum back together kind of thing. So I told him I couldn't do it, but what I can is I can source it and get you something similar. And so to have somebody, this particular client, this is great. They're moving in from Washington, D.C. They want to just have the whole house done when they move here. Well, they also have been contacted a very large furniture company here in town. They're a national company. You all would know them if I said it. But they've reached out to them and they told them they had a $150,000 budget to do this house. And they were frustrated with this furniture company because they weren't getting the feedback and the response that they thought that they should be getting. So what that did is that just opened the door for my team. We met with them and we said, we can't sell you everything that we have here. We can sell you most of it, but we can fill in. And so now that they have somebody who is giving them personal attention, who knows the house and is ready, willing, and able to do the job, now we have the potential of a $150,000 furniture sale in front of us if we service it. That big company just did me a huge favor because they weren't giving this client the time of day.
That is amazing. I love this. You're such an awesome businesswoman. Like, it's amazing.
Thank you. I try, and I feel like my husband Corey and I say this all the time. We feel like we're the Roomba. We keep going, and then we run into a wall and like, oh, that didn't work. Let's back up and punt. And then we keep going, and let's try something different. And then, oh, this didn't work. So let's back up and punt. I've never been afraid of trying anything. And that's what I've had to let go of as an entrepreneur is perfection. As entrepreneurs, we see something in our mind and we want to present it to the world and we want it perfect. Well, you know what? They don't know what our perfect vision is. So if you get out there and you just put something out there, let it go, put it out. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like, for example, what we're doing right now is I'm really working on my customer experience with my luxury clients. So I'm working on putting together videos for them where the agent can actually market themselves. We've got a studio at our warehouse that we can do it. So we're going to start creating these videos that they're going to give us testimonials, but yet we're also going to edit the video so that it's a promotional video for the agent. We're about to start offering them photographs, but not just the real estate photographs. We're doing lifestyle photography. We're going to do a lifestyle video for these houses that we're doing. So like, for example, if it's a fabulous entertaining home, we're going to have a party there and we're going to video it and we're really going to sell the idea of entertaining. So I'm currently working on all of these packages and my vision for it, I see it and it's amazing. Where I'm starting today is nowhere near the amazing point. But here's the deal. You got to get it out there because every time you do it, it's going to get better. And you can start making money off of your idea or your new process or your new product while you are perfecting and getting it better. And then people are blown away by the fact that all you're doing is getting better and better and better.
That's fantastic. That's amazing.
Well, and I know, like, when you started your podcast, it wasn't where it is today. Your vision was so much bigger for your whole company and your training side, all of that, than where it was when you started.
Yeah. I mean, the first episode I think was very bad. I think I sounded like an alien. Like, there was so much echo. And even now, I mean, it's still not perfect. There's still a lot of things I wish we can do, in terms of building better show notes, for example, having a better experience about, audio and all that. I mean, it's slowly improving. So now we have editors who edit, the show and stuff like that. So it's a progress. And I think a lot of times people think that if I start the business, I will succeed. It's like that Kevin Costner movie, like, if I build it, it will come. But it's not necessarily true. Business for me, now I really think it's a long game. It's, with customers, with lead generation, with marketing, you're planting the seed and you really have to give that TLC to constantly water it and constantly nurture it. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it won't grow. And business really, for me, like you said, it's like Roomba. You hit a wall and you keep turning direction. You try something else. And it's a lot of persistence. You just have to be very stubborn. Absolutely.
And there were days that I wanted to quit and my husband didn't want to. There were days he wanted to quit and I didn't want to. Not every day is going to be a good day. There are going to be some days you're just in the trenches that just honestly, they suck. But those really are the best days because you learn from them. Your skin gets a little thicker. And then you start to realize that it's really not that big of a deal in the scope of it all. So let's pick up, let's learn from it, and let's move on. And the vision for your company should constantly be changing, should constantly be growing. Once you hit a plateau, then it's like, okay, I've hit this spot. Now, what's next? And that's where different streams of income have opened up for us. And I'm just going for it. What do I have to lose? That's what I've always asked myself. What do I have to lose? And if I embarrass myself and I make myself, I put myself out there and it's not received, then okay, I tried it, but it doesn't hurt, So, but what if it is successful? What if we've just stumbled upon the greatest thing that we could have ever stumbled upon? And you don't know unless you try it. So go for it.
Exactly. So that brings to my last question. I think this is a perfect segue for it. So what would be your number one tip for someone who's thinking about starting a home staging business?
Do your research. Figure out who you want to work with, what types of houses you want to stage, find out where those agents are hanging out, and just be there to serve. Be ready to serve. And if they ask for something outside of what your box would be, don't be afraid to try it. Because all you're going to do is earn a client that's going to become a raving fan. And knowing that you would bend over backwards and that you would do everything in your power to make them successful, I think that's key to having a successful staging business.
That is absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. Oh my God. I think there's so many good nuggets in this episode today. I think it's just absolutely amazing. So that's it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to help and support the show, there are 3 ways to do so. You can leave a review and rating on iTunes. You can share the show on social media, or you can donate to support the maintaining costs for the podcast. You can make a donation through the show notes or on the sidebar of our site. If you haven't left a review on iTunes, please do so. This will help us grow the show and book more guests. If you have any questions, feedback, and suggestions, you can comment on the show notes. You can also find the show notes by going to stagemore.com/podcast. That's it. Have a fantastic week and happy staging.